Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
Some of you know that I've been a Windows user for most of my life. Most, if not all, my life, although Windows hasn't been around for my entire life. Certainly, dyed-in-the-wool PC guy. So you're asking yourself, why then is Chris, it's me, deciding to switch to a Mac? Why is he using OS X instead of Windows? Why isn't he just switching to Linux? There's a lot of reasons why. Is it because Chris likes Apple computers? No. Is it because Chris is an Apple fanboy? No. It's because Chris likes Steve Jobs so much he's got to buy everything he makes? Definitely not. Is it because Chris likes talking about himself in the third person? Probably. Bottom line is that I've discovered through just trying that Mac OS X today is a far more user-friendly experience than anything I've ever seen delivered on the desktop by any other operating system vendor. That's my bottom line. For the past year, people have been watching me live, streaming video, using a Mac, sitting next to a Mac, and PC stuff too. And so now they're starting to call into question their conceptions or misconceptions about the Mac, about OS X, the operating system that runs on the Mac. It's not a black and white issue. There's a lot of shades of gray here. But I've got a top 5 reasons why Nick Nunya is reluctant to switch to a Mac as his next computer. Now, he notes here that he's reluctant, which is a very open-minded statement to make. He's not saying he's not going to do it. He's just got a few more questions. And to me, you get all the answers to your questions by trying. That's what it's all about. Nick writes, after seeing you fall in love with Macs, I stopped bashing on them and rethought what they are. You're the first person who suggested getting a Mac who I trust. Normally, when someone advises to get a Mac, they say things like, it just works, or they don't ever crash. Those are very vague and ignorant remarks that clearly show they don't really know why Macs are good, and those statements are definitely not true. I've only used Macs at school, and so I've never gotten a good feel for them, and according to my friend, they bought the bad ones there. I always used Windows, so I have some feelings about switching to a Mac. 1. Is it really that easy? By that, I mean software. Is Time Machine really that easy? Or, for example, is iMovie light years ahead of Windows Movie Maker? Is GarageBand really 10 times easier than Sound Recorder? I just kind of proved a point there, but the question remains, are the apps really that easy? Well, saying something's easy is a relative term. What's easy for me may not be easy for you, certainly not as easy as some things are for my wife, Ponzi, who isn't quite as sold on OS X as I am. I found, though, being steeped in Windows and the nuances and the shortcuts, I try to use the Mac keyboard shortcuts on Windows more often than I use or try to use the Windows shortcuts on the Mac. Now, that's important because I use Windows 70% of the time, but yet I find the Mac way of doing things to be a lot easier. For example, today it is absolutely true, I needed to pull up the options panel for Windows Media Player. So what I did was I went on my keyboard, which is just a regular old Windows keyboard, and I try to do the equivalent of Command comma. Now this is a keyboard shortcut that in most Mac applications, like 90%, like any application that you're going to find is likely going to have this keyboard shortcut. That keyboard shortcut on the Mac will, 9 times out of 10, pull up the options or the properties for that particular program. So if you have any options, or what they call them preferences, sorry, that's the Mac equivalent, but that's the keyboard shortcut. Very intuitive. It doesn't really matter what app you're in. And there are some that don't exactly adhere to that construct. I found that, when trying to use this particular MacBook Pro, beyond the software, the hardware, the way, and I've talked about this in videos before, I find the way to pull up a context menu by 2-finger clicking or tapping on the touchpad is far more intuitive. I can't do it any other way. It's frustrating now to use another laptop, especially if I'm used to doing it this way. I can go any which way, but I got used to it, and it didn't take that long at all. I'm a keyboard shortcut kind of guy. I'm always going to be that way, and there's certainly plenty more keyboard shortcuts in Mac OS X than there are in Windows, and more importantly, they tend to be the same across applications, at least the more common features for keyboard shortcuts. In terms of apps being easier, Audacity. There's an audio editor for you. It's cross-platform. Open source, baby. In fact, it looks pretty much the same on the Mac as it does on Windows. Is it easy to use on Windows? Okay, well then it's just as easy to use on a Mac. In fact, unfortunately, it looks the same. And that's not a good thing. Audacity didn't really think about putting a good user interface atop its fantastic functionality. Regardless, it is open source. You got to give it that. In some cases, the programs will do the same thing. You may have to change a few different things about how you go about doing something. But it's there. I mean, it's just there. Spell checker, by the way, is built into the operating system. There's a dictionary in OS X that's one click away in Spotlight. You type in any word, it'll look it up in the dictionary. Can't be that hard to use. I don't know anybody's got a problem using the dictionary. Number 2, it seems that a new Mac is released every other day. I don't want to go get a Mac and have it wind up being inferior in 3 months. For example, if you had purchased a Mac, let's say a year and a half ago, would it run most of the software for the Mac available today? Sort of brings me to my next question, but let me first address this particular point. Well, it's like any bit of technology, right? There's always going to be something latest and greatest. Whether it's a digital camera, whether it's an MP3 player, a microphone, it doesn't matter. There's always going to be something new. Same thing for PCs. There's always going to be something new right around the corner. But the interesting thing is, as OS X has evolved with various revisions, they maintain as much backwards compatibility with older processors as humanly possible. Now, while Apple has been releasing machines on the Intel platform, the latest version of OS X still supports the PowerPC platform, which is not the equivalent of the Intel platform. Some software has been optimized for another platform, but the binaries, and calling it that may be a misnomer, but the programs, the apps, as bundled, the way Apple has decided to do this is many of the apps out there, universal binaries, you download it once, it could run on a PowerPC platform or on an Intel platform. You don't have to change a thing. So they maintain so much more backwards compatibility, potentially. There are snags, of course, between operating system revisions, as is the case with any operating system, whether that be OS X or even, let's even say Linux, or Windows. It doesn't matter. Software is tricky, and as long as you're dealing with a developer who's always up to date, then you should be good to go. Making an investment, just make it smartly. It's pretty well known that you do not make a hardware purchase or even a software purchase within a couple months' time, unless it's necessary, within a couple months' time of Macworld. And because usually Steve Jobs will announce something. Recently, they actually pre-announced the new Mac Pros. They announced them at CES rather than at Macworld because Intel and CES, and they wanted to catch the buzz with that. Buy smartly, but even if I had, we basically gave our iMac G5 machine to Ponzi's aunt and uncle who live across town, and it could run Mac OS X Leopard and a lot of the software that I'd want to run just as much as I could, or just as easily, or pretty much just as fast as I could run it here on this particular MacBook Pro, which is on the Intel platform. That old other G5 is on the PowerPC platform. So, you jump in. There's really no time like the present. There's always going to be something faster, but it's just like PCs. You just got to decide when to jump in. Catch the buzz. See if there's anything new being talked about. And then, if you can, wait until that new thing comes out and then buy. Number 3, can Macs be upgraded? Slapping a new video card into a PC desktop can be done in minutes, and the drivers are right on the disk, so there's no real hassle. If I wanted, I could pop open a Mac and slide in a PCI video card. Would I have to take out... What? If I wanted, could I pop open a Mac and slide in a PCI video card? Would I have to take it to the store for that? Would I have to buy special cards? Is it possible? As far as you're concerned, like a Mac Pro, that being the closest thing to a PC, at least as far as the desktop case is concerned, it's a PC. It's got PCI slots. It's got drive bays for SATA drives. No real proprietary connections, unless you count USB as proprietary. Firewire connections. So long as you've got vendor support, you're going to have support for it on OS X. So there are components that are certainly upgradable in the Mac Pro. But as far as the iMac is concerned, if any components could be upgraded, it's likely going to be your memory, possibly your hard drive, maybe other smaller components. But for the most part, when people buy an iMac, what you see is what you get. And you know what? I think I'm just fine with that. It does its job. I know that for years I believed in wanting to upgrade the PC as much as humanly possible. But I discovered that the last PC that I built myself, it lasted 5 years. But I tell you, at the end of that 5 years, man, I was so out of date. I mean, that thing was so slow in comparison to newer machines. Like, it just couldn't handle it. Didn't have a fast enough processor. Didn't have enough RAM. Didn't have enough hard drive space. So, really, how long is a computer going to last? 3 to 5 years. How much do you really need to upgrade it? What do you really need to upgrade inside it? And again, this is, I'm sure, a religious debate. If you want to control everything inside your computer, fine. I don't. Not anymore. A Mac can handle an ATI video card as well as it can handle an NVIDIA video card. It can handle USB, so long as the drivers are there. And you know what? I've hit a couple snags, most certainly, but no more snags than I've hit on Windows. Do your research. Find out what other people are saying. Find out if that vendor really supports that device on Mac OS X. Number 4, games. I don't care what Steve Jobs says. PCs are where the games are at. My question is it possible to run a game in Boot Camp? If I'm correct, Boot Camp runs Windows programs on the Mac. A game is basically a program. Even though I have a PS3, there are games on the computer that consoles can't really pull off that I like to play. When I say games, I mean cutting-edge games made for Windows that have processing power to run. So is it possible to take a modern game for Windows and run it on a Mac? It's been said that the Mac is the best PC for Windows Vista out there. Boot Camp is Windows on a PC. It's just on a Mac. That's what Boot Camp is. It allows you to dual boot between operating systems. You're not in OS X anymore when you boot into Boot Camp, and that puts you into Windows. You're in Windows. That's it. That's like the hardware will work because Apple's been working with the drivers to make sure there's all cross compatibility. But it is Windows. It's Windows. Like, that's it. That's Windows. Yeah. So you're not just buying a Mac. You're buying a Mac and Windows if you've got a license or if you want to run Windows on a Mac, although I don't know why you would necessarily want it. Well, games, okay, I'll give you that. But if you're just looking for software compatibility, and I think Google in the chat room just mentioned it a couple seconds ago, one of our sponsors, VMware, has a product. There's the logo right there, VMware Fusion. It's a product that will run on your Mac desktop that will let you run Windows on your Mac desktop seamlessly. Seamlessly. It's insane. I don't know if the games are necessarily, the performance is there within OS X in a virtual machine. Maybe in a couple years' time. But until then, there is Boot Camp. That's Windows. Through and through. And as I said before, a lot of people like Windows more on a Mac than they do on a traditional PC. Number 5, price. Recently at the Apple Store, or Mac Store, or whatever, I saw the price of a basic notebook. Well, first let me clarify. A Mac store is a makeup store. Apple is the name of the company. Apple has more than just Macs. I saw the price of a basic notebook. I then proceeded to shout profanities and curse Steve Jobs. A basic notebook is somewhere around $1,200. Right now, I'm on a notebook PC, not my primary computer, that's over 2 years old. Has the processing power close to that of the basic Mac. This notebook PC was purchased for around $800 2 years ago. So 2 years down the road, I'm going to pay $1,200 for a machine that's just a hair above my old notebook, for which I bought for a lot less. I get the feeling that Apple is trying to rip me off. I understand that maybe you're paying a premium for hardware that can run the OS, but come on! In your opinion, would it be worth it to buy one of their basic desktops, as I'm looking for a new primary system? Right now, my primary desktop running at 2.2 gigahertz with 1 gigabyte of RAM, just to paint a picture. Or he's trying to give me an overview. Would it be even worth it to upgrade to a Mac if I'm not willing to spend $3,000, although I'm not saying I'm just looking at these basic packages? Macs have amazing resale value. Amazing. I mean, I remember selling one of the, well, it wasn't an original iMac, it was the iLamp iMac, you know, the one with the swivel screen. I bought one. That was the first Mac I ever purchased for myself. Before that, I purchased the first iMac for one of my younger brothers, the iLamp. And it was a couple years old. I mean, it was definitely showing its age. And I remember, you know, I bought it for, I think it was right around $1,500, maybe it was around $2,000. I just didn't use it all that much. It was slightly older, like a G4 or something like that. And I put it on Craigslist, or I can't remember where I listed it. But I listed it, I was like, well, let's see if I can get $1,200 out of it. And you know what? I did. You try to sell that computer that you bought 2 years ago, you bought it for around $800, try selling that computer for anything more than maybe $300. Now, if you buy that Mac at $1,200, my guess is in a couple years' time, you could get rid of it. You could sell it for a much higher price than you could for an equivalent PC. Why? They just hold their value. Traditionally speaking, Macs, Apple computers, hold their value. Does that mean the hardware is any better? Hardware may be the same. Is the brand better? Well, that's a matter of perception. I'm just telling you, that's the market. It holds its value. So yeah, you can spend less up front, but if you're going to get rid of it at some point down the road, unless you want to hold on to it forever, well, that's something to consider. More importantly, well, laptops are a different species. But let's say you were to spend the money on an iMac. Well, not only would you get something with a small desktop footprint, you'd have the monitor included, fast system. In fact, I'm considering, and not long from now, filling this space here with an iMac. I'm thinking about it. Possibly to use as a secondary computer. You can never have that many computers. You know what I'm saying? In fact, I may use that iMac as my Windows machine on my desktop. I know it sounds kind of funny, but it's true. So it's difficult to talk about money because I realize, you know, you're a gamer, so you're probably spending hundreds, if not thousands of dollars on good systems. I mean, you're not definitely getting a good gaming system at $800. So money is really not so much of an object when it comes to computing. It depends on where you want to spend that money. If you want to play games all the time, well, you know, maybe you're better off not using Apple. But if you want to have a different computing experience, if you want to download software with less fear of being attacked by viruses or spyware, if you want to try new, fun, easy-to-use software, maybe it's the Mac. That's for you to decide. And I realize this video is long, but there's a lot of talking points here. If you can, see if you can borrow a Mac, possibly even buy one on the used market. You know, there are people who are selling their systems now. You could probably find a good deal, a discount, a bargain, even if it's an older machine. Still going to run the latest software. Is it going to be the latest and greatest? No. But if you want the latest and greatest, you're always going to have to pay a premium for anything. That's Apple or something that's not from Apple. Doesn't matter. You know, I've received a lot of emails from people saying that they're even thinking about using a Mac because I have, and I'm not a Mac user, even though I guess I am kind of a Mac user. It's just trying it. looking past your own biases, your own prejudices, it's hard to say. Once you look past what you believe to be true, to see your own truth, to make up your own mind, that's when the world starts to open up to you. I've gotten emails from people who say, hey, I just bought a Mac because I watched you playing with it. You look like you were having fun. Sorry about that. Well, maybe I'm not so sorry. What I'm sorry for is that Apple doesn't care. I mean, they do, but Apple doesn't care. They just don't. Their PR department has no idea who I am. They never will. They'll never have any idea who we are. That's just not who they are. Doesn't mean I don't like their stuff any less. Regardless, I don't know if anybody else has got any suggestions, tips, tricks, talking points about this discussion that's never going to end. I'm going to be fighting these issues for the rest of my life, I swear. Like I said in the beginning of the video. Regardless, my email address is chris@pirillo.com. And our chat room is always abuzz. They're talking about all sorts of stuff. Mac, PC, Linux. Well, PC, I guess Linux is PC, but you can run Linux on a Mac too. Oh, it's just it's technology. It's geekery. And it's fun. It's fun to talk about this stuff, and it's fun to use the computer. That, I think, is what's won me over more than anything else about the Apple's platform. It's just fun. It's fun again. It's fun. I got more wows in the first 5 minutes of using Leopard than I did for over a year of using Windows Vista. And I mean, like, positive wows. Doesn't mean it's perfect. There's a lot of chinks in the armor. No matter. You're welcome to swing by the website. Let us know what you think. Am I crazy? Am I not crazy? Are you considering the same Switch? Let me know. We'll do it together. You know what I'm saying? We're in this together. You and me. Just forget everybody else out there. It's you and me. If you made it even this far in this, how many minutes have we been recording? Half hour? Ooh boy, it's a big topic. No matter, the chat room is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no matter which operating system you run, at live.pirillo.com. We'll see you later.